The sham trial against Donald Trump continues in New York, but now a show of force. Republican leadership from Washington, D.C. rallies around Donald Trump in Manhattan in the courtroom and to speak to the media, something that Donald Trump is not allowed to do. We're going to give you a breaking video that just happened outside the courtroom moments ago. And that's coming up in a moment. Plus, Jen Psaki caught in a big lie. I mean, I know you're saying that's her job. She's been lying for Biden and Obama and Kerry for years. But this one involves the Gold Star families of our 13 fallen in Afghanistan. And it's despicable. And we'll give you all the details. And does Joe Biden want Robert F. Kennedy dead? I mean, I hate to put it that bluntly, but, well, he refuses to give him Secret Service protection. And yesterday, RFK Jr. had a terrifying home invasion and still no protection from Joe Biden. What other conclusion can we reach? All that and a whole lot more coming up right now. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. I'm just Larry. I mean, it's just, I'm harmless. It's just Larry. Larry could never do you any wrong. Can never do you any harm. I'm one of the stooges, for crying out loud. I'm a joke. Don't worry about me. We're just having fun over here. That's all it is. We're going to win this thing so big, so big. Earlier today, Donald Trump arrived in Manhattan at the courtroom. And of course, as usual, he spoke to the media that was assembled there. And I'll show you the very beginning of it. But honestly, what President Trump had to say on his way into the Manhattan courtroom is not nearly as important as the people you will see filing in behind him. Just take a look at this.
Our president now in court, about to speak to the cameras. Let's drop on in.
Surrogates, and they are speaking very beautifully, and they come all from all over Washington, and they're highly respected, and they think this is the greatest scam they've ever seen. And some are Democrats. They're very embarrassed by what's going on. I just want to start by saying that on the electric vehicles that Biden is pushing down everybody's throat, even though people don't want them, he wants to put a big tariff on China, which is a suggestion that I said, where have you been for 3.5 years? They should have done it a long time ago.
That's right, indeed. Donald Trump, Joe Biden has announced tariffs on electric vehicles, which is kind of funny considering he's trying to cram electric vehicles down your throat. When President Trump had tariffs against China back in 2020, Joe Biden criticized him, mocked him about those tariffs. And now Biden's tariffs are even more robust. But, you know, who wants consistency of policy from this gang? He doesn't believe in anything. He just believes in furthering his political career. But again, as I mentioned, take a look behind President Trump. What you see there is Congressman Corey Mills of Florida. You see Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. A show of solidarity, a show of force, and a show of defiance against this fraud, this scam, this absolute sham. And they went into the very first session of the testimony of Michael Cohen and the case that's going on right now. And we'll get into some of the testimony in a bit if we have time, but it's not as important as what we're seeing right now, because as they emerged during a recess, they went to the microphones and they told the American people exactly what's going on here. Let me be clear. Everything you're about to see from Doug Burgum, Vivek Ramaswamy, Corey Mills, everything they say, if Donald Trump had stepped out, the man who stands accused by the government, the man who was innocent until proven guilty, if he stepped out of the courtroom and said exactly the same thing, this judge would throw him in jail. Let me repeat that. Everything you're about to see from these governors, members of Congress, prominent Republicans, everything they say, if Donald Trump came out and said the exact same thing, the judge would throw him in jail. And here's what they had to say. We'll start with Doug Burgum. This is breaking. It just happened moments ago.
President Trump is leading all over the country. And the conclusion you could draw from that is the American people have already acquitted Donald Trump because the things that that they're concerned about inflation, crime, the border, the economy, all of these things. President Trump is leading by huge double digits versus Joe Biden. And the sooner that this scam trial can be concluded, the sooner that the president can get back to getting out, campaigning, and talking to the American people about the issues that matter to them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the congressman, then Vivek. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of America, this trial is a joke. This thing is a farce. We were in there all morning. Michael Cohen basically sat there and said, yeah, he invoiced legal expenses. The Trump campaign, the Trump organization, not the campaign, paid out money in legal expenses. Where's the crime? There is no crime. The only crime that's happening here is this Democrat judge and the Democrat Party prosecuting their political rival right in the middle of a presidential election. The crime here is that the issues facing our nation are not being addressed by the Democrats, but they want to go after Donald Trump. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that has been wrong here. Nothing that has been done poorly by President Trump. The only thing that's being done wrong is by this judge. His daughter's making money, raising money for Democrats. And all of the fundraising emails and all the fundraising things are about this trial that his daughter is using. He won't recuse himself. This is a travesty of justice. This is a misuse of the justice system. And look around New York. New York's got plenty of issues. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. You have all of NYPD's finest down here because of this travesty going on in that courtroom. Meanwhile, the citizens of New York are less safe, and the district attorney in New York is not prosecuting real crime. He's a Soros-backed DA going after his chief political rival in Donald Trump. America is better than this. And so, unfortunately, it's going to take the American people this November to let their voices be heard on this travesty of justice that's occurring and making sure that Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. I've never seen anything like it. This is a joke. It is a farce. It is a travesty. We are better than this as Americans. And unfortunately, the Democrat Party has lost their ever-loving minds. And so it's going to take the American people to remind them that justice is supposed to be blind. It is not supposed to be going after political opponents and political rivals. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague from Florida, Congressman Corey Mills.
Thank you so much. What have we learned here today? What we've learned is that Michael Cohen, who has no credibility, who has purged himself multiple times, who has zero integrity, has actually admitted to defrauding the Trump organization. He has listed his invoice as being an actual legal precedent where, in fact, he's now claiming that it's something other than that and that he knowingly and fraudulently put that forward. Look, as we talked about, why do they want this trial to continue? Well, they want it to continue because this is the fundraising source for Adam Schiff, for Biden, and for the Democrat opponents. This is nothing more than election interference at its finest. You are seeing where the weaponization of what was the Department of Justice, now the Department of Injustice, has continued to be utilized against the American people and against the President of the United States. I will tell you right now, the same way that I stand here steadfast behind our president, I know that America stands with him as well. They see this sham indictment. They see this for what it is without any actual substance whatsoever. Keep in mind, they keep actually talking about the FEC violations, but when you're utilizing personal funds or you're utilizing a trust, that is not campaign funding. There is no violation, which is why the FEC never actually even pursued this. And so I think the American people see this for what it is. They want to keep President Trump off the campaign trail. They're seeing what's happening in the swing states across America, and they're seeing exactly that this is draining down assets and resources that can be utilized by the president to continue to forge ahead, to build a stronger economy, to secure our border, and to get our nation back on track. This is a sham, and that is the only thing this is. Michael Cohen has no credibility, no integrity, and this is weaponization against our president.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues, Governor Burgum, Congressman Mills, and Congressman Donalds for laying out the political backdrop here. This is a politicized persecution that is nakedly apparent. What I want to do is dive a little bit deeper into what we actually learned today in that courtroom. What do we see in there? First of all, I learned a lot from being in there in person. It is one of the most depressing places I have been in my life, but it is fitting because the only thing more depressing than the environment of that courtroom is what's actually happening in there. It's straight out of a Kafka novel. The prosecution's main strategy appears to be to bore the jurors into submission. And if you look in that direction, sadly, it may appear to actually be working. Now, I would like for anybody here in the press, anybody at home, anybody at MSNBC or the media afterwards, to clearly state what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump committed. Oh, wait. We have not heard a good answer to that question. It has been vague until today. You heard Michael Cohen's testimony, after which I would say it is less clear than ever what that crime actually was. They'll say falsifying business records. Well, let's look at who did we learn falsified business records today? Yet, what, hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been a perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot. Imagine if it was Joe Biden that was on trial. You had a Republican judge whose son was collecting millions of dollars as a Republican operative. What would you all be saying? This would not be justice. This is injustice at its worst. So let's go even a layer deeper, right? Because let's go even a layer deeper, actually. The alleged crime here is supposedly, they try to point to this every day, that he does not actually use campaign funds, that he used personal funds. Well, let's get this straight. Suppose Donald Trump had used campaign funds to make a personal expense. They'd be going after him for that. So if they're going to get him going or they're going to get him coming, that is the best proof that this is a politicized sham. Let's go through it piece by piece. If you tell somebody to go buy you a suit and you want to look good on television because that'll affect the voters, the way voters vote for you, you know what? They prosecute politicians if they use campaign funds to buy a suit. If they say, go get a haircut, if you use campaign funds to get a haircut because you want to look good to the voters, they will actually prosecute you for using campaign funds for a personal expense. Yet the entire legal theory of this case, the whole case that Alvin Bragg has brought, depends on one premise for them to charge this as a felony, is that Donald Trump somehow should have used campaign funds to make an allegedly personal payment. Yet if he had done that, their case against him would be even stronger. This is garbage. That is the best proof that you have that if they're going to get him going or get him coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a sham. This is not the United States of America. This is some third-rate banana republic. If this were happening in another country, we would be laughing at them as a sham democracy. I am ashamed as an American citizen to sit here in a courtroom watching the former leader of the free world, and let's be honest, likely next leader of the free world, sitting with the indignity in this dingy third-rate courtroom with fourth-rate prosecutors and a fifth-rate lawyer on the stand as a witness, who actually is violating attorney-client privilege left and right. Nobody's even talking about that. So this is a shame. Shame on the spirit in our country's history, but we will get through it and be stronger because you know who ultimately actually cast the vote on this case? It's not just the jurors in that jury box. It's every one of you at home. It's every American who votes this November to say no to the weaponization of justice. And if you're at home, you may say, you know what, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump's ever said. You know what, I may not agree with some of his policies even though they were great policies for 4 years. But you do agree, whether you are Democrat or Republican or black or white or gay or straight or man or woman, that our justice system should be blind to politics. That regardless of whether your last name is Biden or Trump, regardless of whether you've been a politician or not, you get a fair shake in our own legal system. And when you have a prosecutor who campaigned on the pledge of going after Trump and then keeps his campaign pledge, when you have a judge whose kids are collecting money from Democratic operatives by fundraising off the very trial that judge is presiding over, and then telling the U.S. president that he's subject to a gag order, that he can't talk about it, that is not justice. That is a bastardization of what this country was founded on. And I'm here, and all of us are here as friends of Donald Trump, supporting him in our personal capacity, sharing our opinions. That's why we're here today. But I hope every American at home who isn't able to be in that courtroom is able to see what's actually happening there. And when you do, we will have a landslide of historic proportion this November if every American understands the injustice that's playing out in that courtroom today.
Hell to the hell yes. Are you not fired up right now? Thank you, Vivek Ramaswamy. Thank you, Congressman Donalds and Mills. Thank you, Governor Burgum. How awesome is it to see them showing this solidarity? By the way, earlier Speaker Mike Johnson, we didn't grab that one for you, but Speaker Mike Johnson also showing his solidarity for Donald Trump. The Speaker of the House of the United States, not lost on any of us. They're all wearing the same uniform. It's like, it's like the freaking Avengers there, getting all dressed up in the same crime-fighting uniform to save the planet and save the country from what's going on here. And he not only is he showing what a sham this trial is, but he actually gave better legal analysis and a breakdown of the laws and how the law is completely being twisted here with regard to campaign finance money versus personal money. And you used your personal money, but it was a campaign-related thing. Well, what if he had used campaign money? That would have been even worse. It's like, so in other words, you set up enough laws so that if you want to prosecute somebody for some reason, you've got a law that you can find. And the answer is yes. That's exactly right. That's exactly what this is. But for those of you who have been wondering, where is the Republican Party? Where is the solidarity? Where is some sign of force? There you have it. And by the way, it's not just today in New York City. Yesterday as well, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance was there, along with Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville. We're going to look at that a little bit too, just a little bit of J.D. Vance at least. But again, I want to remind you, if Donald Trump, the man who stands accused, who is fighting to defend himself as the innocent until proven guilty defendant in a United States court of law, if he went out and said exactly what Vivek Ramaswamy just said there, the judge would put him in jail. But it's okay for Vivek Ramaswamy to say it, or Byron Donalds, or Doug Burgum, or Corey Mills. I need a legal expert to explain that to me. I need somebody who understands the First Amendment and due process and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and every other protection that we, the people, enjoy in this United States Constitution. I need them to explain to me why these guys can say it, I can say it, but the man who stands accused, who is defending himself against the full force of the United States justice system, he's not allowed to say it because of one man's whim, a judge who's compromised because his daughter is raising money for Democrat politicians off of this trial. What I just said, if Donald Trump said it, he'd be in jail. Here's J.D. Vance, senator from the United States from Ohio, United States senator from Ohio, yesterday.
But number one, I'm here for the simple reason to show support for a friend. I think this trial is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a sham prosecution. And I think that luckily the president's supporters should know that he's actually in great spirits despite the circumstances of this. He should be out on the campaign trail. But of course, he's here with this trial. Let me say something about what I've witnessed so far in my couple hours in there. First of all, Michael Cohen is the prosecution's star witness. This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once, allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Donald Trump. Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael Cohen says? I don't think that they should. And I actually think that his testimony is going to hurt with any reasonable juror. And hopefully we have a few of those.
That's right. Listen, this guy, Michael Cohen, admits that he secretly taped his own client and now is revealing everything that's on the tape and everything. That's not only a violation of privacy, it's a violation of attorney-client privilege. It's a violation of ethical standards that lawyers are supposed to adhere to. And also, here's the best part of all. The alleged recording of Donald Trump actually helps Donald Trump's defense. Let me explain. The first point is when this recording took place. The recording took place in January of 2017. Now, Michael Cohen says that this recording proves that the labeling of the payments to Stormy Daniels, it was decided that it would be labeled as legal fees, right? And this is a recording showing that they were agreeing to do that, right? And that's what Donald Trump is being accused of breaking the law, falsifying financial records. But here's the problem. That conversation took place in January of 2017. The prosecutor contends that Donald Trump falsified these records to get around federal election law because this helped him in the campaign. But if the conversation took place in January of 2017, and it was after that that they falsified the records, allegedly, the election was already over. How is that going to help him in the campaign? It doesn't help him in the campaign. The campaign's already done. But then there's also the contents of the recording. Jonathan Turley, a law professor at George Washington University, he appeared on Larry Kudlow, and I want to show you that.
Well, the most important thing about the audio tape is that there was an audio tape. I mean, for most lawyers, listening to this tape is really an appalling moment. The very idea that an attorney would tape a client without their knowledge or consent just shatters every aspect of professional conduct. But the tape really doesn't offer much. Like much else in Cohen's testimony, he gives these details of how he goes to his client and says, I fixed the problem. I arranged for payments. This is not good. This story is going to go away, at least before the election. And Trump saying things like, good, good. Well, that sounds a lot like a client following the directions of his lawyer. But now the lawyer is telling the jury, I think you should send my client to prison for doing what I suggested for him to do.
That's the most critical thing about this whole thing. All you saw on CNN, MSNBC, Michael Cohen, blockbuster audio. He secretly taped Donald Trump because, if you secretly tape somebody, that means by definition, the guy you're secretly taping must be guilty of something. But what's the contents of the tape? It's Michael Cohen saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And Trump saying, okay, sounds good. Thanks. It's not Donald Trump ordering his lawyer to do these things. It's the lawyer saying, I'm going to do it. And now Donald Trump's the one who should go to jail for just, allowing his lawyer to do these things. I mean, far be it for me, as somebody who does not have a law degree, to step in and try to give legal analysis of where this case is and what the origins of it are. I'll leave that to smarter men than I, people like Jeffrey Toobin. But on the face of it, in the details, in the actual evidence, the charges, and the conduct of the people involved, not to even barely mention the political affiliation, the brazen, partisan, biased political affiliation of those who are representing the government to bring the full force of law against the man who is currently running for president, taking him out of the campaign, off the campaign trail, and literally silencing him. Everything about this case, and I mean everything about it, is a complete and total fraud, a political kangaroo court meant to try to keep you from voting from a person who you want to vote for. That's Banana Republic stuff. And you know it. I know it. And now we've got a full sign of unity from Republicans in Washington, D.C., including the Speaker of the House of the United States, signaling to everyone here that he knows it too. We all know it. And this whole thing will be over very, very soon. I'm going to ask you a simple question here. Can your savings weather an economic storm? And I mean a big storm, tsunami force. Think about what you put away for the future. We got inflation right now, which can render cash worthless. You know that. You've seen it. Real estate, you think that's the best way? Well, real estate can crash, just like it did in 2008. Economies built on a mountain of debt, like the American economy is, can fall like a house of cards. There are very few physical assets you can invest that can stand the test of time. Gold has withstood as a valued form of money for millennia. It's why people are flocking to it now and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little-known tax loophole, Birch Gold lets you convert a retirement account into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part, doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Text Larry to 989898 so you can learn more. You'll get a free info kit on gold. Let me ask you again, can your IRA or 401k weather an economic storm? If not, and if you're not even sure, call the people I trust. Birch Gold. Text Larry to 989898 and secure your savings today. Jen Psaki, you remember her. She was the spokesperson for the Biden White House. Now she's got a show on MSNBC because she's a journalist. She's got a brand new book out. The left is eating it up. They love it. They're buying box loads of it. Only problem is it's got a giant, unbelievable lie in it. Alex Thompson of Axios reporting here. She wrote in her new book that Biden didn't check his watch during the ceremony for the Abbey Gate soldiers. Those are the 13, they're not soldiers, by the way, Alex. Learn your military jargon. They were from various branches of the military, and they were there. They died in a suicide bomb attack from a terrorist because Joe Biden, with his haphazard, feckless withdrawal from Afghanistan, didn't keep security forces there. So we had to rely on the Taliban to provide security. Yeah, we were relying on the Taliban to protect American service members from terrorists. And of course, according to this book, he didn't really check his watch at the Air Force Base in Dover as the dignified transfer of remains for those military members took place. According to her, it was misinformation, contradicting news photos and Gold Star families. I mean, you can see the photo right there. Funny thing about this lie, it's pretty easy to blow apart. You remember the moment. Here's the video live.
You talked about Sergeant Nicole G., who was one of the 2 female Marines who were killed among the 13. She was the one who posted that Instagram post holding the baby saying, "I love my job," just a few days ago.
Here you go. You just saw it. And he did it multiple times. According to Jen Psaki, it was just crazy right-wing wackos like me who made the claim that he was checking his watch. Of course he was. We all saw it, but this is what Jen Psaki does. It's what she's done for her career for the last 20 years, first as a spokesperson for John Kerry's State Department, then as one of the spokespeople for the Obama White House, and then the Biden White House, and now as an anchor on MSNBC. She lies. She accuses other people of lying, especially conservatives and political opponents. Her job is not to tell the truth and never has been. Her job is to lie on behalf of leftists in this country, the Marxists and the Democratic Party, that she gets paid a lot of money to lie for. And so now she's been called out. But this lie is worse than the other lies that she told, supporting the Biden White House and attacking people like you and I for daring to have a differing opinion than the treasured elitist Jen Psaki. No, this lie actually affects Gold Star families, parents who have given the ultimate sacrifice for this country, the lives of their own children. As as Matt Foldy wrote at Town Hall late last night, Gold Star families blast Jen Psaki's lies. Her useless ass wasn't even there. No, she sure wasn't. She wasn't at Dover. How would she know how many times Joe Biden checked his watch? She doesn't know. Joe Biden told me, and so it must be true. Just about 30 minutes ago, one of those Gold Star fathers actually appeared on Fox News, Mark Schmitz, and I want to share with you what he had to say because it's pretty powerful. Here, take a look.
Well, I couldn't believe this. Her book just came out right before Mother's Day, and the wounds have been reopened yet again from a talking puppet that had no clue what she was talking about. We were 25 yards away and sat there and watched in horror and disgust as he looked at his watch, at least the first 4 caskets that came off that plane. And I couldn't look at him after that. So I don't know if he looked at his watch again after the first 4. But that was his MO. Watch the casket go by, check my watch over and over and over again.
Let's I want to spend a little time breaking this down for a minute, okay? God, my heart breaks for that poor man. Imagine losing his son, a Marine Lance Corporal, Jared Schmitz. And thank you, sir, for your sacrifice, your honor, and we will do whatever we can to uphold the honor of the memory of your son, because think how despicable you have to be. You lied for a living when you were the spokesperson for this White House, for the Biden White House. In fact, you were there lying on behalf of the military operation in Afghanistan as all of this transpired. You knew exactly what happened, and you lied from beginning to end. You're Jen Psaki. And then you negotiate a deal with NBC News while you're still on the job at the White House. So when you step away, you can just transfer right through that revolving door in the Democrat media complex, as my friend Andrew Breitbart first called it. So you can go right from working in the White House to having a cushy job behind a desk, making 7 figures for NBC News and MSNBC. And you continue to lie daily. Again, now getting paid by a news network to lie for the Democrats and for Joe Biden. And now, of course, you're going to make even more money. You're going to write a book to talk about your expertise as a spokesperson. And you're going to throw everything into that book, right? You're going to, and here's the thing about this book. Nobody's going to read it. No one cares. People buy this book in Washington, D.C. and in Manhattan to put on their coffee table or on their bookshelf or over the summer to have with them as they're sunning themselves in the Hamptons. They don't read it. They just have it there. So people say, oh, are you reading Jen Psaki's new book? It's really powerful, isn't it? I love the Psaki bombs. And knowing all of that and knowing that you're going to get rich off of this crap that you're throwing into this book, because Simon & Schuster can't wait to sign a big check for you so they can get on the good list over in Washington, D.C. You still have to go out of your way to put this lie. Of all the lies you put in your book, you put this one in. And let's be clear here. The story of Joe Biden checking his watch over and over again during the dignified transfer of remains of these fallen Marines and other members of the military, due to his ineptness, due to his lack of leadership, due to his horrific, terrible decision-making, where he deferred to Antony Blinken and the State Department rather than actually listening to the Pentagon about keeping Bagram Air Force Base the most secure place to finish up the withdrawal. Instead, no, we're going to hand that over to the Taliban because the Taliban wants it. And the State Department's going to call the shots here. And everybody in the Pentagon's like, what the hell are we doing? We're going to use Karzai Airport in the middle of the city where there's no security. We've got an air base. Let's use our air base. It's got layers of protection that we can provide. Nope. Taliban doesn't want that. And we're going to do what the Taliban wants because the State Department in Joe Biden's world overrules the Pentagon for a military operation. And the story of the transfer of remains of these 13 fallen and the fact that Joe Biden, the commander-in-chief, constantly checked his watch, that did not come from me. It did not come from Breitbart. It did not come from Tucker Carlson. It did not come from Sean Hannity. It came from the parents who were there. It came from Mr. Schmitz. It came from the Gold Star families, the wives, the mothers, the fathers, who in their grief were nauseated by the fact that the president who sent their sons and daughters to their death didn't even have the dignity to stand there and do the one job he had without wondering when it was time to go take a shower with God knows who. So when Jen Psaki decided to put this in her book, he's not dropping a Psaki bomb on some right-wing talking head. She's once again dragging these poor people through the slime. She's not punching back on Tucker Carlson and Fox News. She's punching him. She's punching mothers. She's punching wives. It's the most despicable lie you can imagine. And we shouldn't be surprised. Again, this has been her job. Her entire public career is defending and telling lies. New York Post shares that she is now admitting that this was wrong, that she's got to retract it from her book. And the Gold Star families, as you just saw from Mr. Schmidt, they are in fact threatening a lawsuit. And I hope they do sue. They should sue her, and they should sue the publisher of the book. Won't make a huge difference. I'm sure it'll take forever, and a judge ultimately will protect who the judges are supposed to protect in this country. And Jen Psaki, by the way, where's her public apology? Where are the interviews grilling her like Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, just got grilled over her allegation that she met Kim Jong-un? Let's just be clear here. Kristi Noem falsely claiming that she met dictator of North Dakota, Kim Jong-un, is at the same level as Jen Psaki lying about Joe Biden checking his watch. In fact, the Jen Psaki lie is even worse because we all knew going in. And also, Kristi Noem exaggerated her resume on Kim Jong-un to bolster her own persona. It was a selfish act. What Jen Psaki did here, it's not to boost her up. It's not even to boost Joe Biden up. The reason Jen Psaki told this lie in her book was to attack innocent people. It was to punch back, as I said, to the father of these fallen military members. It's way more despicable. So every time Jen Psaki goes on her book tour now and she's interviewed by someone in the media, they're going to go after her in the same way Kristi Noem got attacked, right? I mean, there's going to be the same kind of forceful. And by the let's just be clear, Kristi Noem, the tough questions she had were from people like Fox News, Fox Business, Newsmax, Stuart Varney, Greg Gutfeld. She didn't even show up to Greg Gutfeld's show. She was going to get it from friendly media. So I'm really looking forward to when George Stephanopoulos or Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper interview Jen Psaki. They're going to go right after her, aren't they? In fact, this is triggering a memory. On The View last week, Jen Psaki herself was asked about the Kristi Noem book.
As someone who's had to clean up a whole lot of political mess
Just a few.
over in your career, have you ever seen anything as bizarre as Kristi Noem? Come on.
Well, Whoopi, I've never worked for somebody who shot their puppy in the face, so I'll start there. I've also never worked for somebody who's lied about a foreign leader they've met with. And Alyssa made this point. This is so true. Meeting with Kim Jong-un, there are a handful of people who have ever done this. It's very knowable. And also, Sarah, you made this point. I'm just echoing all of you here. I just wrote a book. You write your book. Whoopi just wrote a book. The book's coming out tomorrow, same day. Congratulations. It's great. I've been reading it. But you read the book 1,000 times.
So many.
You read it out loud. When you're doing the audiobook, you think, oh, you need a comma there. That weird word is strange. When she said, and I met with Kim Jong-un, did she think to herself, I didn't meet with Kim Jong-un? So to me, I've done lots of cleanup. Alyssa's done lots of cleanup. Not quite this kind of cleanup.
Yeah, it's a knowable fact. It's provable that you didn't meet with Kim Jong-un. You know what else is a provable fact? Whether Joe Biden checked his watch multiple times at Dover. We all know it. But there she was mocking Kristi Noem. I can't wait for everyone on The View to go after Jen Psaki in the same despicable way. How much you want to bet they won't? I think we know the answer to that question. I think we know full well. By the way, what was it she said here? Hang on.
No. Come on.
Well, Whoopi, I've never worked for somebody who shot their puppy in the face. So
Well, that's true. But you have worked for somebody who ate dog when he was a kid. That would be Barack Obama. You've also worked for somebody who didn't control his dog from biting 10, 20, what are we up to now? 30 innocent Secret Service agents at the White House because Biden can't control his own dog because he got a dog as a photo op for good Instagram attention, although he has no business actually raising or disciplining the dog in the White House. And by the way, while we're at it, you didn't work for someone who shot their puppy, but you do work for somebody who showered with his daughter. Yeah, that's right. I went there. You know, it's Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month in America. All right, it's a mouthful. But this is the month that's set aside to or honor the contributions of Asian Americans in our society. It's always uncomfortable when a Democrat's in the White House during this because, you know, Democrats love Franklin Roosevelt. And there's that whole messy business with interning Japanese American citizens who were actually native-born American citizens who just happened to be of Japanese descent during World War II. That's what Roosevelt did. You remember, put them in prison camps because of their race. Yeah, Democrats have a lot of cleanup work to do there. It didn't help much yesterday at the White House when Joe Biden appeared with Kamala Harris, who, by the way, has Indian heritage. That falls under the category of Asian American Pacific Islanders Natives Month. And so he and Kamala had plenty to say. Let's start with Joe Biden admitting who's really running the show over there at 1600 Pennsylvania.
My name's Joe Biden. I work for Kamala Harris. I asked her to be my vice president because I knew I needed somebody smarter than me.
Now, first of all, that's a really low bar, and I'm not so sure Kamala Harris actually clears it. But can we just dispense with this? I know he thinks that it's funny and humble and self-deprecating and oh, golly gee shucks. But here's the thing. Your brain is broken. Your brain is full of mashed potatoes. You can't walk across the lawn, let alone up or down a flight of stairs. You can't read a teleprompter. You don't know where you are at any given moment when you're done with the speech and you turn left, turn right. I have no idea where I'm supposed to go to leave the stage. You barely work at all. It's not funny anymore when you point out to the rest of the world what we all know to be true, and that somebody else is actually doing things, and you work for them, not the other way around. Trust me, it's not funny, and actually, given the state of affairs right now, it freaks us the up. All right. But he wasn't done. Remember how I mentioned that he can't read a teleprompter? Well, here's a couple of joyful moments that we can all share together. Here's your president, Joe Biden, at war with the English language.
It matters now nearly 40% of NAH, NHPI students rely on Pell Grants to get to college.
It's a simple, it's a very, very simple acronym there. AANHPI. Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, AANHPI, and it's actually spelled out on the teleprompter, letter by letter, AANHPI.
It matters now nearly 40% of NAH, NHPI students.
Did you get that? It's a stutter, don't you know? That's the problem. It's a stutter, just like here.
There is no singular Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander identity and diversity in those cultures, the breadth of achievement, and shape the strength and fabric of this country.
Can I just read you what he thinks he just said? Because we have the transcript of the speech. This is the sentence that Joe Biden just delivered. There is no singular Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander identity and diversity and those cultures, the breadth of achievement, and shape the strength and fabric of this country. If we were to diagram that sentence, our brains would explode. There is no singular Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander identity and diversity and those cultures, the breadth of achievement, and shape the strength and fabric of this country. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself.
There is no singular Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander identity and diversity in those cultures, the breadth of achievement, and shape the strength and fabric of this country.
There goes that damn stutter again. It's all just a stutter, everybody. His brain is not full of mashed potatoes. He is fully capable of reading the English words put in front of him on a teleprompter, the sign of the scoreboard at Dallas Cowboys AT&T Stadium. No. It's just a stutter, okay? Now stop asking about it. Oh, and then there was this.
But Kamala are going to keep fighting to restore Roe v. Wade until it's the law of the land again.
By the way, why is this an issue with Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders? Why are we having an event celebrating Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Month, and we suddenly start talking about killing babies? But did you hear the very beginning of this where he refers to the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris? Listen.
But Kamala are going to keep fighting to restore Roe v. Wade until it's the law of the land again.
I'm sorry. Who? You're going to work with who now?
But Kamala are going to keep fighting to restore.
Did he say Kamala? That's odd. I mean, I remember a day when pronouncing her name that way was racist.
But it was treated as an act of bigotry, a grave offense against the honor of a sitting U.S. senator. CNN was outraged. With all the things going on in the world today, they wanted you to know that someone out there had mispronounced Kamala Harris's name.
I want you to listen to how Tucker Carlson, the best he could do was to somehow mangle her name. Listen.
Just tell Kamala Harris what to say, and she will say it. That is the whole point of Kamala Harris.
I call him Schmucker Carlson, but it's an ethnic term, so he might not understand.
But then at the end, it's laughable because he's like, or whatever. So it's like, no, it's not whatever. It is about you having to finally face what you have done to this country, to Black people, to Black women. There's nothing or whatever about this moment.
So, but the bottom line is, look, any criticism of Kamala Harris is immoral. Anyone who so much as mispronounces her name is a racist. That's what they're telling you. So with that in mind, pretty amusing to watch old Joe Biden himself mispronounce Kamala Harris's name today. Watch.
I told him I wanted to be the last person in the room before he made important decisions. That's what I asked Kamala.
So there you go. He does it all the time. And he just did it again yesterday.
But Kamala are going to keep fighting to restore Roe v. Wade.
Where's everybody wringing their hands now? Where's everybody screaming racism? Where's everybody? Well, we know where they are. We know exactly where they are. That said, Kamala Harris did have plenty to say at another event, again, celebrating Asian Pacific Islanders. Take a listen to what she had to say. And if there are any kids in the room right now, I'm sorry in advance, but it's just the Vice President of the United States talking.
We have to know that sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open. Sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that door down. Excuse my language.
Oh, the laugh. Excuse my language, like it just slipped out. This is so programmed and so planned and so scripted and so test marketed as everything is with this manufactured presidency and certainly this manufactured vice president. I was told that decency was on the ballot last election. I was told that this kind of vulgar profanity is not normal, with the clapping emoji. I was told that people were literally shaking because they couldn't sit with their own child to watch the president or vice president of the United States because something vulgar could be coming out of their mouths. Remember all of the things they said about Donald Trump? I said vice president. I'm thinking Mike Pence wouldn't have said anything like this. But do you remember how this is not normal, people? We need to bring decency back to the White House. Remember how the idiot Colin Jost is his name from Saturday Night Live Weekend Update at the White House Correspondents' Dinner? My dad was a Republican, but before he died, my grandpa. But before he died, he voted for you, Joe Biden, because you're a decent man, right? It's all about decency, all about decency. We got to have decency. We're going to restore decency and dignity because everything that what Donald Trump did was broken. So how's that decency working out?
We have to know that sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open. Sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that door down.
By the way, Kamala Harris had lots of doors opened up for her during her entire career. Does anybody out there not think at this point that being half black, half Asian, and a woman is in fact an advantage in most cases? I mean, hell, you could even, if the best thing is if you're half black, half Asian, a man, but you identify as a woman. Now at this point, every door is open. You don't have to kick down any effing doors. Every single door is opened up and the red carpet is rolled out for you. And yes, in Kamala Harris's career, over the decades, those doors were open and she walked right through those doors, sometimes on her knees, but she still walked through those doors. That was gratuitous. Where's the lie? Oh, and one other thing about all of this grandstanding over kicking down those doors for Asian Americans because Asian Americans are being held back by the man. It's true that Asian Americans are facing discrimination right now. It's true that doors are being shut to Asian Americans in this country right now as we speak. Who's shutting those doors? Who's putting up those walls and those barriers for Asian Americans? Harvard. The admissions department at Harvard, or every state school. I can attest to the UC schools being this way. Private schools, high schools, public high school education right here in the DC area. One of the top rated high schools in America, Thomas Jefferson High School, changed their admissions program to embrace equity because there were too many Asians there. See, the Asian Americans are getting admitted into all of these great schools because they've been working their asses off. Their parents have instilled in them a work ethic and a focus to value education and value their time so that it's spent not watching music videos on YouTube or playing video games, but to actually focus on your studies first, because lack of success academically would not be tolerated in that family or in their culture. So they're excelling in academics. And so who's slamming the door in their face? The elites, liberal, leftist, Marxist elites personified by Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party, where they are slamming the door in the face of Asian Americans to keep them out of those places of higher learning because they're guilty of being the wrong race. So if there are doors that need to be kicked the F down, the doors were put up, constructed, and locked by Democrats like Kamala Harris. One last word here. Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, we saw him a little earlier speaking outside the courthouse in Manhattan. He's on a short list right now to be running mate for Donald Trump, and a lot of smart, powerful people in D.C. keep throwing his name out there as the person they'd like to see Donald Trump select as his running mate. Well, given the prospect of him being the running mate, he would be debating Kamala Harris should he be chosen. So Jesse Waters asked him yesterday about it.
Joe Biden, I mean, people talk about you on the ticket. Joe Biden has his ticket set. It's Kamala. Here is the ticket. Watch.
My name's Joe Biden. I work for Kamala Harris. I asked her to be my vice president because I knew I needed somebody smarter than me.
We have to know that sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open. Sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that door down.
Excuse my language. Okay. Is she talking about if they are reelected, she's just going to kick that door down to the Oval?
Could be. I don't know. Maybe Joe's in there with all the ice cream and she can't.
He loves two scoops. What do you make of these two?
Well, I think that Vice President Harris has accomplished one thing, which is she's managed to be less popular than the least popular president in history.
It's quite an accomplishment for Kamala or Mamala or whatever they call her. Doug Burgum, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse.
We'll let him have the last word. But I gotta tell you, they really are pushing Doug Burgum. I don't know. What do you think? If you think Doug Burgum's the man to be Trump's running mate, why don't you put it in the comments for this video? Or if you disagree, put that down there too. Either way, you got to be impressed with the eyebrow game. Those are some serious eyebrows on that man. I find that impressive. Does Joe Biden want Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dead? Now, I know that's a provocative question. Well, I'm going to lay out the facts to you, and I'll let you decide. Because the fact of the matter is, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is now running as an independent candidate for president, has been begging for Secret Service protection. And let's face it, his last name is Kennedy. His uncle was the president of the United States and was assassinated in Dallas in 1963. His father in 1968 was on his way to claiming the Democratic nomination for president, and he was assassinated in Los Angeles. There's a thing about Kennedys here when they have a public profile and they're running for office that maybe, just maybe, we should pause and recognize. And the fact that he is right now polling anywhere between 10 and 20% in national and statewide polls tells you on the face of it, regardless of his last name, that he is potentially a major candidate who would make a difference and maybe even has a shot at the White House. Nikki Haley had Secret Service protection and she was never close to getting the nomination. And he's been asking for this protection, and Joe Biden and his Department of Homeland Security continue to deny him. Earlier today, he took to the social media platform X to deliver this message about a harrowing situation that happened in his home because he doesn't have Secret Service protection.
Hey, everybody, you might have heard that yet another intruder broke into my house this week and then returned to my house again shortly after the police released him. Last month, an armed gunman using falsified U.S. Marshal badges and phony federal ID and carrying an arsenal in his backpack tried to approach me at a speech in Los Angeles, a short distance from where my dad was assassinated. I don't want to make too big a deal of it, except that it highlights the need for Secret Service protection. Every presidential candidate since the 1970s who's asked for Secret Service protection has received it, including my uncle, Edward Kennedy, Walter Mondale, John Glenn, Gary Hart, George McGovern, Bill Clinton, George Bush, John Kerry, Mitt Romney, Bernie Sanders, and many, many others. They've all received early Secret Service protection. Barack Obama received protection almost 2 years before the election. However, President Biden has made the historic decision to deny me a Secret Service detail. I'm the only one in history whose request has ever been denied. I don't spend time worrying about my personal safety, but I do worry about the safety of my family and their sense of well-being, and about the safety of bystanders if there happens to be a more serious incident. I'm troubled mostly by the weaponization of federal law enforcement agencies to serve political agendas. It's not right for the president to provide protection for his family and political favorites while denying it to his political rivals. You can't have a functioning democracy when candidates aren't safe. Elections and not assassinations are supposed to decide who takes office in America. In its threat assessment, the Secret Service concluded that I am at an elevated risk. The decision, therefore, to deny me protection was a naked political calculation. During his first week as Attorney General, my father assembled all the Department of Justice senior prosecutors to tell them that he would not tolerate any politicization of law enforcement. President Biden displays a bust of my father in the Oval Office, but he seems to have forgotten this critical tenet of American democracy. I'm reaching out to you today to help send a message to the Biden White House. The time has come for public pressure to make the White House do the right thing. That's why I'm asking you to sign a petition to President Biden, calling on him to grant me Secret Service protection. Even if you don't support my candidacy, I ask you to sign this petition to protect me, to protect the public, and most of all, to protect our democracy. Thanks for taking time to do that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, listen, he made a very compelling case. I would like to add a few more thoughts to it, though, because you got to ask yourself, what is the rationale here? Why is the Biden administration reluctant to provide Secret Service protection for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Are they trying to force him out of the race? Is this a political move? It's certainly not based on any logic. Oh, by the way, why aren't people pressed on this? Why is Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, not asked about this on a daily basis by reporters? Why aren't they camping out in front of his office or his home to demand an answer on this? Where is the media asking questions? Again, this says, I don't support Robert F. Kennedy. I don't want him anywhere near the White House. My God, the guy's a crazy left-wing activist. That's the last thing I want for a president. But this is about right and wrong. And listen, I respect and admire the fact that he frames this entire discussion in, listen, I'm not worried about myself, but I do worry about my family and my bystanders. No. I worry about the electoral process. I worry about the dignity and security of the process we utilize to choose our leaders. That's what we should be worried about here. This is, in fact, not about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This is about us, the American people. Just like in the security of our voting procedures in this country, we, the people, deserve a solid, corrupt-free process to use democracy to select our representatives at every level, especially president. And if, God forbid, something were to happen to Mr. Kennedy, that would upend the entire election, as it did with his father when he was assassinated in 1968 and never got to claim the nomination of the Democratic Party. That changed history. He wasn't the nominee yet. He was heading to the convention. It looked like he had the delegates. It was going to be close. Had he been the nominee against Richard Nixon instead of Hubert Humphrey, everything could have changed. I don't know if it would have been better or worse. It doesn't matter. That's what an assassination's bullet does. It doesn't just kill the individual, God forbid. It alters the course of history, and it affects all of us. That's why the Secret Service is there. Because our system of government and our democratic process of choosing our leaders needs to be protected so that our rights are protected. Now, we already know that Joe Biden loves politicizing law enforcement. We see that transpire every single day. And we also know that Democrats love interfering with elections so that they can have their way. So, again, I lay out the facts for you so you can decide one way or the other, what in the hell is Joe Biden thinking? Why would he continue to deny? After all of those incidents that you just heard, and the same guy keeps coming in and intruding in his home, and another guy a few weeks ago did it. This isn't just sort of coming up and breaching against him when he's doing a public appearance at a hotel or a fundraiser or something. This is breaking into his house. Why doesn't he have Secret Service protection? Why wouldn't Joe Biden give him Secret Service protection? He spoke a little bit more about this last week with Sage Steele on her podcast here.
I'm the first candidate in history that has requested Secret Service protection since my dad's death, which is when they gave it to everybody. And there's been 44. They have to give it to you 120 days out.
Okay.
But they've given it to 44 candidates, basically everybody. 200 days, 300 days. I think Obama got it 541 days out. Jesse Jackson, people with a tiny fraction of my polling. Shirley Chisholm, Pat Buchanan, got it a year out, etc. So I'm the first one that they've ever denied it to. That's
And did they ever give you a reason?
No.
What's your gut?
They'd say, I assume that it's a political decision I know the Secret Service told them that I was at elevated risk. There was a 68-page report that was documenting all the death threats. The people who broke, 4 people have broken into my house since I declared one of them, a mentally ill person who got to the second floor when my family was home. Another time, a man came with a lot of loaded pistols, shoulder holsters, and a backpack filled with weapons and magazines and fake U.S. Marshal ID, and tried to get into my green room and at a speech in Los Angeles with a lie. And he had fake federal enforcement agency ID. And luckily, one of my, paid guys, Gavin DeBecker, looked at that badge and said that U.S. Marshal badge is a little too shiny. And they pulled him aside. And
So this is all being funded by you personally then? All your security is from you?
Yeah, it's being funded by my campaign, but it's a lot of money. It's like $1 million a month. And you asked me why.
$1 million a month.
Yeah. Because you have to travel with people, and you have to pay airplane, and you have to pay, you have cars, at both ends, and you have to have hotels, and and it's a robust detail. So, but you asked me why I thought they were doing it, and I don't know because I can't look into their heads, but I assume they've made a decision that they would rather me spend that $1 million on, protecting myself than on advertising or field organizing or whatever. So I think it's cynical. The troubling part of it is that it's really the first time since Nixon that a president has politicized the U.S. enforcement agencies. We're seeing this not just with the Secret Service, but the CIA, the FBI, CISA, NIH,
That's possible. It's possible that Joe Biden just wants, it's a cynical ploy to make him spend money on his security. That's possible. Maybe. Again, I'll let you reach your own conclusions here. The fact is, even if he spends twice as much on his security every month, he is not going to get a security detail that is trained at the level of the Secret Service or has the resources that the Secret Service has, the infrastructure the Secret Service has, and the ability to protect him the way the Secret Service does, because that's all the Secret Service does. It's all they know how to do. It's all they've been trained to do. So it's always going to be less than compared to a Secret Service detail. That's just the obvious fact of the matter. So maybe it's a money play. Certainly possible. I will tell you this, the Biden administration has demonstrated, as he just laid out, that they won't shrink at politicizing any agency in the federal government that they control, whether it's the education department, as we see by politicizing Title IX and allowing men to be women in school, whether it's in sports or in a locker room or in a bathroom. They politicize the transportation department by having their secretary claim that bridges and overpasses were built because of racist reasons. And that contracts will be determined based on race and other reasons that they decide on their own, or for that matter, the pushing in the energy department of electric vehicles and Green New Deal agenda. I mean, all across the board, they politicize everything. And of course, the vaccines and the NIH and the heavy-handed approach during COVID and the vaccine mandates, plus the FBI and the Justice Department and the investigation of traditional Catholics who go to Latin Mass or parents who go to school board meetings. Time and time and time and time and time and time again, and not to mention the southern border and our asylum policies and illegal immigration. They warp the law, they distort reality, and they politicize every department of the federal government that they control. Why do you think suddenly they're not also politicizing the use of the Secret Service, even if it means potentially some harm might come to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I ask again, does Joe Biden want RFK Jr. dead? Because based on the behavior and the decision-making process, it's a reasonable conclusion to reach. It may not be the only conclusion, but it's certainly a reasonable conclusion to reach. Or maybe as these incidents continue to occur and his wife and his children and people around him continue to express terror that something might happen to him, that they're trying to force him out of the race. Oh, they don't want him dead. They just want him so scared to death that he gets out. Like Ross Perot did back in '92 when he thought that the CIA was going to disrupt his daughter's wedding. Remember that whole thing? Maybe he'll just clear out. Or maybe it's when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is talking about this, it means it's time he's not spending talking about, all of the things that Biden has done to ruin the country. All of these things are options. I'll show you one more thing that might help you make your decision here to reach the conclusion. Why does Joe Biden not want to give obvious Secret Service protection for a man who is experiencing a high level of threat right now? Take a look at this poll. New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, Siena poll. It's the newest poll. It just came out. And you can say in the five-way race, which is really the only poll, that they shouldn't be doing Trump versus Biden head-to-head anymore. It should always be a five-way, which includes Kennedy, Jill Stein, and Cornel West. But in this case, they actually kept Stein and Cornel West linked into other there, and they broke out RFK Jr. in particular. Take a look at the first line, Nevada. Biden 27, RFK Jr. 12, Trump 41. I'll do the math for you. If RFK Jr. goes away, that's Biden 39, Trump 41. We're assuming here that he's drawing mostly from Joe Biden, which I think the polls show and bear that out. That if you're stuck with only choosing between Trump and Biden, you pick Biden, vast majority. But if you have Kennedy as an option, you go to Kennedy. Pennsylvania, Trump is beating Biden 40 to 36, but RFK Jr. is getting 10. You take RFK out, Biden wins 46 to 40. Arizona, same thing. Trump's winning 42 to 33. You throw that support from RFK Jr. over to Biden if RFK isn't a choice, and now suddenly Biden's in the lead, 43 to 42. Georgia, Trump 39, Biden 31. You give Biden the 9 points from RFK, and suddenly it's a dead heat, Biden with a slight edge. Michigan, even more stark. Trump up 38 to 36. It's close, but you throw those 9 points that RFK Jr. is getting, and it's a landslide for Biden. And Wisconsin, where they're tied, dead heat, 38-38. Again, 9 points RFK Jr. is getting, and suddenly Wisconsin is easily in Joe Biden's camp. Why is Joe Biden single-handedly deciding that RFK Jr. does not get Secret Service protection, despite incident after incident after incident, including a home invasion? Why? It's pretty simple when you look at the numbers. If RFK Jr. is taken out one way or the other, Joe Biden benefits bigly. That is it for today. Thank you for watching. And we humbly ask you to subscribe, please, so you can have access to all of our past episodes. And most importantly, so you know about our future episodes, because we're doing something fun and something special here. And we appreciate you being a part of it. That's it for this time. Until the next time, I'm Larry O'Connor. Please call me Larry.